Hello, everyone. This is Mark Rhodes. Hey, it's time for our quarterly New View Huddle. We get together with the partners in our strategic partner program to talk about Business Central, the community, what's happening with the product, life cycle, customer partner relationship, just about anything that relates to you using the system more effectively and getting the input of these incredibly experienced community leaders and again, representatives of partners from our partner program, just to talk about this, keep you up to date, make sure that you're thinking strategically about your use of Business Central and Nav out there. And so today we are going to talk about apps, extensions, add-ons. We'll talk about the difference in the terms and where we're at, but with the introduction of Business Central a couple of years ago, that landscape has changed significantly on a couple different fronts. And I wanted to talk through what that means for you all out there, especially if you're still on Nav and looking to make the switch to Business Central, how this is going to impact you and what the differences are. And certainly if you're on Business Central, help you identify how to be more successful with the apps going forward. Before we do that, we're going to go around our panel and have everybody introduce themselves. I'm going to call on Natalie first because it's her first time joining us on the huddle here. Hi, Natalie.
Hey, Mark. Great to be here. So my name is Natalie Lemke. I'm the Vice President of SMB Delivery at Stoneridge Software and a self-professed Business Central enthusiast.
Yes, as I think we all are, yeah.
Right?
Right. All right, and then I'm just going to go clockwise from there. Tom. Hey, Tom.
Hi, Mark. I'm Tom Doran. I'm our Chief Marketing Officer at Innovia Consulting.
Excellent. Ben?
Hi, Ben Baxter, Accent Software, lead sales, and happy to be here.
We're happy to have you. Thank you. All right, David.
Muted.
David, you're on mute.
But you sound great.
That's rule 101, right? So thanks, Mark, for letting me join. David Gersten with Dynamic Consulting is the organization. My role is the SMB ERP Strategic Engagement Manager, focusing on Business Central, GP, Division.
Fantastic. And Eric.
I need to get a title as cool as Dave's. That's anyway. I'm Eric Hogarth, and I'm a managing partner in eFocus in Canada. We're a Business Central shop, and I'm also a Microsoft MVP, and does a lot of these days a lot of YouTubing about Business Central.
And curator of the Technology Museum there in Vancouver.
Exactly, yeah.
Hey, I should say Microsoft MVP is a pretty cool title too, so let's not gloss over that.
Thanks.
Okay, let's go ahead and dive in. And I wanted to start because I imagine we're going to have folks watching who are on various versions of Nav. Maybe they're new to the BC space, don't have the history, so forth. I just wanted to find a few terms and describe the transition that's happened over the past couple of years. I'm going to take a quick stab at this, and then the panel is going to be very quick to jump in and correct everything I said wrong. In the old days, and it wasn't that long ago, you had third-party add-ons from ISVs, independent solution vendors. Actually, I don't even know what that stands for anymore. It's just been part of the lexicon for so long.
Vendors or
and so the way that you would attach these to your Nav system, either it was part of the base Nav code, so very tightly integrated, or it would run as code next to the Nav software. Now, that was the way it was for a long time. Alongside that, we have value-added resellers or VARs, which are the partners that you're familiar with. This is who you buy the software from, and they help you implement and upgrade and support on a regular basis. So that's the way it was for a very long time. And then with the introduction of Business Central, they moved to an architecture that really made it easier, or supposed to make it easier for you to upgrade. And I'll always think about Marco Perisic's analogy. Just like Windows, you get an update that rolls through, you click yes, and it makes your updates for you. He really wanted to shift from a major upgrade, which is what you are always faced with Nav, to more of an oil change. And that was the term he used with Business Central. And with that, they had to really segregate the add-on solutions, the additional solutions that you would get to complement your Nav solution. And so they came up with an architecture known as extensions. And this code sits outside the base code. So when you do an upgrade now, you're only updating the base code, and then you would get the updated code from your ISV. Along with this, Microsoft has really encouraged, where there used to be a very traditional hard line between VARs and ISVs, VARs doing the projects and supporting the client, ISVs producing the software. They've wanted to integrate that, and where a lot of VARs now are providing solutions as well. And so there's not such a hard and fast line between VARs and ISVs anymore. And that's important for context and just understanding. And so now we have extensions as this new architecture, new way of extending the code for base Business Central. And with that, ISVs are now developing applications, and selling those through AppSource or direct or through partners. There's a lot of different ways to get a hold of that. With that shift, that's been as you might imagine, a very, very significant shift for the providers of those additional solutions. They've had to re-architect their solutions. And now with monthly updates and twice a year major updates with Business Central, it's quite the effort to keep up with the upcoming code updates, let alone all the versions out there and everything else. So that's where we're at. A lot of shift has happened. We really wanted to clear up maybe some misperceptions, explain a few things, help people really understand, okay, this new environment, how can you be successful with it, especially for the system admins out there? How do you make all this work? So panel, how did I do with that explanation and that setup? Yeah.
As long as you understood it all, that was perfect.
Quick comments. Thank you, David. I'm only calling on you today because Eric didn't beat me down too bad there, so I did pretty good. But yes, any additional comments on that as we get started?
Well, I think it's important to understand that a couple of concepts. The concept of apps is way bigger than what you explained, because we have something called the base app, but that's just another app. So everything is an app now. So what you get from Microsoft is basically just a runtime environment, and usually the first thing that we put on the runtime environment is a bunch of apps from Microsoft. Mm-hmm. And those apps are working and reacting just like the apps we're creating. Mean that when we get the minor upgrades, it's just Microsoft updating their app, just like if we were updating our app. So everything is an app now. And the major shift is that we have this segregation of let's just call it code. And what we used to have were just one big pool. And yeah, we sort of have a segregation on object numbers and very technical things, but in reality, we just had one big pool, and it was a free for all, and anybody could do anything on any object. So it's the. I wouldn't even call it a all change, because upgrades happens on Cloud Business Central's update happens daily. Mm-hmm. Apps are updated, hot fixes are thrown in there. That's just a new version of the base app. Right. So there are updates going on constantly, and you wouldn't notice it. It just happens. And I see even with the major updates that most of our customers just update clean through. It's no big deal. Going from 17 to 18 or 16 to 17. I think we had major customer where we have had written a customization that's 40,000 lines of AL code, and from 17 to 18 we had to change 3 lines of code, and we already knew about that because that was something that was made end of life in 16, and we didn't really get around to fix it in 17, so it became an error that prevented us from updating 18. But it's fantastic compared to what we had in the world of nav.
I think it's a totally different customer experience too. You know, the way that a client used to learn about the add-ons or apps for nav was through their partner or through the community. Now a customer can go out to AppSource and they can self-serve to learn about what all the different apps or extension options there are. They can see the ratings or reviews out on AppSource and then have a more informed conversation with their partner. So there's just a totally different mechanism for how, as an end user, you would go out and learn about the options available in the market, and then have a conversation with the experts that you trust about what you should or should not take advantage of in your environment.
But the coolest feature in this whole new world, the single most cool, can you say that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The coolest feature is that you can uninstall an app.
Mm-hmm.
Something that we could never do in the world of nav.
Great point.
So if you install an app and this app is crap, uninstall it, and it was never there.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing compared to what we came from.
Right.
I have a follow-up question for Natalie there, for the panel from Natalie's comment. Before I forget, I do want to identify who here is actually developing apps and selling apps, because as I said, the line between VARs and ISVs has really gotten blurred. Eric, you do, correct?
I do.
Okay. And then Ben, you said you used to, right?
Yeah, so I used to work for a company that was an ISV before I went to the partner side.
Yeah.
But as a partner, we're not developing anything we plan to sell, but we do have our own internal tools that we use.
Okay. Excellent.
And that's where I was going to say, I mean, if you think of it as apps, we are always, because we do our own internal development for our customers, we are often building these apps for them. We're just not taking them to market.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole other.
Everybody's doing that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think it's very relevant because the conversations that happen that kind of piggyback to Natalie's point of the kind of the self-service independent customer is, as a VAR, how do we manage that and keep it in control as well? Because there are whatever 300, 800, 9, 1,000, 1,200, whatever that number is. Some of them are incredible, and we can support, we could talk about, we could endorse. We have a partner relationship. We've, a lot of times these ISV, these developer solutions creating these apps need different contracting with the partners.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of want to limit who we're having these relationships with to a certain degree of the VAR. So we want to manage that. So the question I often get from customers is, what happens if I just go download it, and it's a trial and then right. And I had one and I didn't have a relationship with them, and that ISV had a very, very complicated partner agreement, one that we were not able to endorse and get behind, and they only sell through partners. So now this customer was like engaged and liked this solution, and I had to say, I'm sorry, we're not going to partner with this ISV based on some of their terms and conditions, but here's an alternative. Mm-hmm. And we got them to go down that route, but that was just an ugly exchange that didn't need to happen, if we could control the customer. So it's a double-edged sword. I love the fact that, and they don't even have to go to AppSource. I mean, they just need to go into the Ask Me or whatever it's called, the question mark.
Sure, shows up there now, yeah.
And it starts showing up in the app.
Culturally, there's been a shift. I mean, to David's point, that when we first started, Ben was in high school and they were, but you would say, hey, you know, what should I have for,
Right.
you know, shipping? And we'd say Lanham, and the customer would say, okay. And now that ship sailed about 6 years ago, at least in our opinion. Like they're self-educating, they're self-choosing, and so we've had to change our approach and simply say, look, you know, we view them in 3 categories. One is core. So that means if we call it core, then you can expect first line support from us. We've got customers using it. We're familiar. There's promoted. Okay. We're reasonably familiar, but we're not experts. And then there's ad hoc stuff. It's like, guys, we know about as much about this as you do. If this looks like a winner, we're happy to work with you, but you just need to understand that we don't know much more about this than you do.
It was interesting. I was on a webinar last week with Microsoft, and they were presenting, you know, we're talking a lot about NAV or BC users, but there's the whole GP community that's now being talked to. And they come from a similar ISV world in the past, architected differently. So, but it was interesting. They showed like these, they called them vertical or industry, and they were vertical. And I didn't really see it as really vertical, but they took it by module. Like there was one about bill payment, and there was one about, you know, each of these business processes inside, but they had like 6 to 10 of each solution, like they're presenting to the customer. And I'm like, wow, that is just like throwing spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. And I love that, Tom, that 3-pronged approach. You know, because yeah, you absolutely, there are those that you are core and you'll market together and you'll do webinars, and you could even support it as the first line support VAR. And I think that's what customers want. They want to know that every month it's not going to break, and every 6 months it's not going to break, and that if something happens, that they can go to the VAR, because you are that quarterback on the account. And that's been an interesting experience.
I think though, what, you know, it's encouraging partners now though, through this process of exposing directly to the clients, for us to grow not just out and up, but the you know, matrixed growth of, okay, so there's 3 different sales tax solutions we support, and there's 4 different shipping solutions, and we've got these different menu options. So maybe I do want to order spaghetti, or maybe I want spaghetti with meatballs, right? And I do think that, you know, the rigor that Microsoft has put in place for those apps to get out to market has been beneficial to partners. Sometimes when we found a new third-party product to share with a client, and that first install, you know, Tom, to use your example, well, you found the solution that you think is going to be a good fit for your business, or we found a solution that we think is going to be a good fit for your business, Mr. Customer, and we go together, and then we learn the code isn't as solid as we thought it was going to be. It's not actually as tightly integrated as we anticipated. This doesn't actually fill this niche, and it's going to need this additional code to make it actually work for my customer, right? Now, instead, we've got Microsoft putting a layer of protection on the front end to say, you know what, before you can get this app to market, you've got to pass this gauntlet, and it's intense, right? And that's to everybody's mutual benefit. You disagree?
Totally.
Definitely.
There are so the checks for getting into into AppSource are, most of them are about the you know, the listing and stuff.
Yep.
They don't test your app. They don't verify if your app is working or not. That is, they test to see if your app is not breaking standard functionality.
Correct.
That's the only thing they do. They don't care about if your app is working or not. They don't test that.
Sorry to interrupt. You go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, but prior to getting released, there is some amount of, you're not going to break standard functionality in the application, and you've got a product that's got appropriate documentation. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but prior to AppSource, you could put out on your website that you've got an integration for, you know, nav to solution A, and it doesn't have to exist. You can just put that on your website and promote out, you know, we've got this widget, and you know, you have a client that makes what they perceive as an educated purchase and it's not. So I don't mean to disagree with you or to interrupt, but I do think there is a modicum of vetting that's in place. And then there's a public rating that's available. So if folks do have a poor experience, they can go out there and say, I did not have a good experience.
And that is totally cool. What I, in my mindset, what I'm comparing AppSource to is the old CFMD thing, which was more rigorous. That was more testing. They actually verified if your app made sense, if your app worked in that process when that was still a thing. But I love the the 5-star ratings and the 1-star ratings and all that, because that actually helps users selecting the right app. Yeah.
Eric, my understanding, this CFMD, and we'll extend it, certified for Microsoft. I forget what the D was, but
Dynamics.
Dynamics.
That makes sense. Certified for Microsoft Dynamics. Okay, they're coming out with in 2022 though, like a better version of this, right? Is that what the rumor is? Like, and
So since 2018, CFMD has been purely a desk operation. It does not really. I'm not aware of any actual testing going on anymore. It's the only reason people are still clinging on to that label is because otherwise they will have to pay for the object range every quarter to Microsoft. So the object range they have, if they have the CFMD label, they get it for free.
And that's what I learned was the big reason why they went to CFMD and AppSource, was to block partners that were sucking up a large object range that they could develop whatever they wanted for their customers without actually having a viable solution. So hopefully AppSource is different now. And I think with the way they handle custom object development is better. But yeah, I would agree with Eric that the testing on the products, from what I know of the ISV process, is very bare minimum. There was actually courses led that say, write your test first and then build an app that passes the test. So you don't always get what you want just based on how it's marketed. And I'm indifferent on the ratings. The concept is great, but people give feedback when they're angry, not when they're happy. So we'll see how many 5 stars remain after a year or so.
Yeah. And I won't be the first one to admit, but how many ISVs have called us and said, hey, can you go give me a good rating? Or can you ask your customer to give me a good rating? So because they do have that perception that the rating does matter. So I think I agree, Ben, it could be a blended or a blurred measurement. Again, how do we bring that to the customer though? How as VARs, our responsibility as trusted partners, my biggest, and what does that change? I know for us, we've changed, you definitely have to increase your account management. You have to be in front of your customer. You don't want them to go rogue. That big rogueness of, hey, either first of all, missed financial opportunities, because maybe they will find that one solution that they just can engage and pay and get support, and you don't even know until it's too late that they've done this. So I know as VARs that's shifted a lot. Customer managers, account managers, quarterly calls, monthly calls, report, like that is built. We've as an organization have had to expand our, not that we weren't servicing our customers, but you definitely have created an overhead that wasn't around, I'd say, in the in the days, and I could talk from the GP space. I was in the GP ISV space before I came into the BC AppSource space, but it's very similar. It's at the end of the day, I think for us we have to be 2 steps ahead, because personally I don't want them to go to, I like you, Natalie, but I don't want them to go to I find your AppSource site and then build a loyalty to you. And now, my relationship with my customer, they go, oh, you're a VAR also. Oh, why am I working with them anymore? Why don't I work with you? That starts happening. So I think we have to deliver a higher level of customer service, account management, proactiveness. There's so much responsibility for VARs now because of this self-service model.
I think on the app side as well, one of the things that I've noticed is we have to be much more tightly in communication with those third-party apps to know and understand their product roadmap, because that content could or will get pushed with major releases. So if we're working with a integrated shipping solution that is adding functionality twice per year, the way that I would like my client to find out about that is from me. I want to provide that education opportunity, or in a co-branded message, right, from myself and that third-party product. But what that means is I need to be working tightly with that other partner to know and understand what their product roadmap is, what's coming in each of their releases, how are they messaging those releases, what's that additional functionality, right alongside where we're going through for our regular major release education process, what's coming in each of the major releases from Microsoft, what new functionality does that unlock for our clients, and being on top of that message. So David, I definitely hear you. I think it is a doubling down on that, ensuring that we're always on the leading edge to be able to provide that continued guidance to our clients, as opposed to reactively, oh, there's this new button that popped up. What does this do, right? And we get that, customer service request from a client. I pressed this button because I didn't know what it was going to do, and I think I did something bad. Nobody wants that call.
So David said a bit earlier, trying to control the customer, and Natalie, you said trying to guide the customer. I think what's also happening apps is only part of it, is also cloud in general, and I think just the way the entire industry is moving, that what and how we handled customers back in the NAV days is changing, and I don't think we can cling to that. We need to treat new customers the way we have handled NAV customers for the last 20 years. Things are changing, and apps are just one of the indicators of how this world is evolving right now. So yeah, I'm not sure I want to control my customers. That's I'm not just misusing your word now, David. You can shoot me in a bit. But I think that we really need to figure out how to guide customers through these things, and figure out where are the traps, and where should you go, and where should you not go, and define our role in this setup.
So this is an evolution. Microsoft, in the early days, they told us, they said, look, there's a new wave of company leadership coming up. There's a lot of fairly senior company leaders that are 35 or under at this point. And so they've grown up. Nobody told them how to learn their cell phone. They bought their cell phone. They figured it out. They downloaded apps. They played with their tablets. They downloaded apps. Their expectation in the world is that they should be able to figure it out, that they should be able to go on and find it and look at app ratings. And, app ratings right now, it's all new. None of this is all that relevant. But, pretty soon you can look no different than you do wherever you shop online and say, hey, look, that's a 5-star rating. Oh, there's 6 of them. Oh, there's a 4-star rating, but there's 700 of them. That it just takes time to build that momentum, but the customer mindset is shifting, and we need to figure out how we add value to their conversation so that they choose to come to us to at least check in and ask for our opinion.
So I was a user before I entered the channel, and I was so reliant on my partner for guidance when it came to nav. I looked to them to tell me the answer. And I tell my clients all the time, when I became a parent, my pediatrician sat me down and she said, don't use Google. Do not use Google. Here are the safe places for you to get information if you don't know what's going on with your little boys, right? And she was very firm and she was very serious. And she said, if you use Google, it's going to tell you all sorts of wildly conflicting answers to your question that is not a safe source, right? And so she educated me on how to self-educate, because I didn't have kids prior to that, right? And they don't come with a manual. Business Central comes with a little bit more instructional guides, and of course there's partners out in the community to help. But it's I think that there's a shift, Tom, even more in that direction to say, how do we teach our clients how to self-educate and what are safe, reliable sources for information, and what is okay to do? Is it okay to download this extension into my sandbox? Please don't do it in your production environment. Unless you're prepared to call me shortly thereafter. So I think there's a process to go through and self-educate and, with a little bit of humor, help our clients learn what's safe and what's not safe, how to engage with the sources that are available, who are those MVPs that are on YouTube that are good to watch, that are going to have helpful hints, and where not to go. So I do think that we have to be comfortable and confident saying we know that are going to do it. Our clients are going to do it one way or another. So either we can help them be effective and be self-educated and know and understand how to empower them, because they're going to do it either way. Or if we limit or restrict that amount of information or that access to information, ultimately they're going to do it on their own. Just, are they looking at, good sources? Or are they Googling, why does my child do this thing at 2:00 in the morning? And then, my pediatrician gets a panic call the next day with some mystery diagnosis from the internet.
So I think we're all saying it, we're just saying it differently, but it's about the relationship between the partner and the client. It's a two-way street. So the partner needs to be in front of the client saying, here are things that you should look at. Here's things that we think apply to your business based on our experience working with other companies in your industry. And the same needs to be true for the clients. They need to reach out to their partner and say, we selected you to be our partner. Here's what we want to do. What should we be looking at? And yes, go and look it up on AppSource or just search the internet for it. But they also need to reach out to their partner. That's why we are in business, is to help them make sure their software does what they want it to do.
I love when we have a self-moderating panel and I don't have to do a thing. This has been fantastic. You guys are checking items off my list left and right. So this is, I just love this. I do want to come back to one point that I forget who made it now. It talked about just keeping up with the updates, right? And the new versions coming out and so forth. I think there's some decent confusion out there with users about, well, I'm getting an update from Microsoft. Do I need to get an update for this app? When does that come? Why is this vendor telling me that their app's not updated right? Trying to keep that all in sync. What can somebody talk about that situation and provide some recommendations around how to manage this new situation?
So every Cloud Business Central user should know about the admin center, which is where you control what environments you have and you control when updates happens, all that stuff. But you also control the versions of your apps. And so when you go into the admin center and select an environment, you can select apps and it will list all the apps that you have from AppSource. Not all the apps that you necessarily have in your system, because apps from your partner or stuff that has been uploaded are not on that list, but all the apps from AppSource. Each one will have a version number, and there will be a column for this is the latest version that's in AppSource. When Microsoft is doing a major upgrade, they will upgrade all your apps to the latest version at that point in time. If there's a blocking app, that will prevent the upgrade, and you'll get an email saying this app is preventing the upgrade from happening. What we generally do is educate our customers, saying, okay, check the app setting for apps. If you have an issue with an app, go in and upgrade it, because that's the first thing that will happen if we ask the app vendor about it. But every 6 months, your apps will get updated, but you can keep track of all that in Admin Center.
And I would say that in general, so early days, it was a little bumpy, right? But more recently, I think that any of the ISVs that have their product ready for Business Central, we have found the updates to move pretty smoothly. You know, some of the older legacy ISVs that have been around a long time are still working through that journey.
Mhm.
And that's largely because they were faced with legacy code that they had. I mean, some of these poor people had a lot of work to do to move their product to a new platform, as opposed to the new people that, you know, started from scratch.
And a fair amount of those people ignored Microsoft completely when the extension platform first came out.
I'm not defending them.
Some of them were sitting on their hands for 2 years before they started coding.
Absolutely.
Said they're never going to come off of, they're never going to do it. They're technically challenged that their solutions, I know there's a ISV out there, and thank you, Eric, for solving that problem, but there was a security a security ISV out there that stayed, and they're back on like whatever 15 version. They're just never going to go to the cloud. And Eric's company came out and came up with a great security tool, you know, because
but we can name this because the situation, this is the NAV Easy Security product made by Pierre and Suzanne, which we all know and love, great friends of mine, and the technology in their product is based on Seaside, so they were at a dead end.
Technically challenged that they can't. They developed, unfortunately, and they had no roadmap. They didn't know. They didn't have
but I would say that's a very, very unique application. It's not the run-of-the-mill application.
It's the exception, not the rule.
It is.
I think in that specific example, it is 100% where partners can shine, right? You were using Easy Security. You loved it. It was a great tool. It fit a specific need. And now we have clients who are looking to upgrade, and they're looking for a comparable product to help them solve a similar challenge. And they need their partner to help guide them, because the clients that are out on NAV today may or may not be aware of that challenge. They may or may not know why that product is or is not listed on AppSource. They may not understand what other options are safe, dependable, reliable. And that's 100% the conversation to have with the client is, you know, to say, well, we know that Erica's got this product. This is the use case for that. Here's where this compares to the product that you previously were using. And this is the path to get there, right? These are the steps that are going to need to happen during your technical upgrade to be able to take advantage of this solution set. I mean, I think that is a fantastic, where partners are aware of this in the channel. We know who sat on their hands for 2 years. We know because we've been doing these projects, right? We know who has had a seismic shift in the technology where the solution they previously provided is no longer, there's not an apples to apples companion for that product in AppSource.
And acquisitions. You know, there's been many products that were great for years and years, but through acquisitions, and you know, they're no longer a product we would recommend.
Yeah, great point there.
Absolutely.
And I think you take it one step further. The bigger gap is the GP client, you know, and I'm going to throw them out there because, you know, there's this push to get off of GP. We strategically say, we don't care, stay on GP if that's the right solution for you. But I think the ISV community that's the biggest gap, you know. So it's not so much you have the security solution that couldn't come up great, you guys took care of it, you solved that problem. But what we're not seeing is some of those other ISVs that are core value adds to the solution set. How fast are they getting over to the, migrating over to Business Central? And then is their product the same as what, there's big disparity of feature set of the product. We may have it in GP, but then when we launch it in VC, it's it's MVP. They just wanted to get out to AppSource so that their name was out there, but it's not core functionality, and that's a big disconnect in those GP to VC migrations. I'm sure I would imagine as a nav ISV, you're pushed against a wall. You either go out of business or you make the change. Or you have some sort of, you have to have a business shift. With GP ISVs, they have a good base right now and they're not rushing, but they definitely have to make that move at some point if they want to. But it's just an interesting paradigm shift that's happening out there also.
Going back to Tom's comment, yes, it was bumpy for a while. For a user now, are the ISVs caught up? Are the apps caught up on version? Are they working well? What's the general status? And I guess the answer to the next question is, well, how do you even figure that out? It's talk to your partner, right?
Everyone's cautious. I'm going to say by and large.
All my apps are working great.
Yeah.
I'd say the ones that we care about have done a good job moving it forward.
I think for the majors, I'm very confident that twice a year, the ISVs that are out there are going to function. I will say for some of the minors, that potentially is it's a question I can't answer technically to my customers confidently yet, because I have seen a couple of them just not, but possibly that's just process. Like Eric, you said, on those minors, you got to go in, you got to do them themselves. You got to kind of like Microsoft's not telling you when they don't work. Like, it's more of a self-service reactive or proactive, depending on. But, for the major updates, I think the community has really gotten around managing those apps because they know they're going to be bumped. I think.
No, but Microsoft is also, if you have an app that is blocking them from doing a major upgrade, you got a phone call from Microsoft.
Right.
And the next day you get another phone call from Microsoft, and so on until you fix your damn app. So from that perspective, Microsoft is actually helping because your app is now blocking their upgrade.
But you don't get a phone call on the minors, right? Because nobody just tell them you.
No, because that's they're not breaking anything. Right. So what will break is probably actually the good explanation. So Microsoft has stopped removing things from. No, let me start somewhere else. So what will break an app? Well, now that we have app isolations, those app has dependencies on each other. So if I create an app that is a customer statement report, that's my entire app, that's a customer statement report. That app will have a dependency on the customer table, on the customer ledger entry table, the detailed ledger entry tables. There are some dependencies. So my app has a contract with the app that is giving me those tables, in this case, the base app. So if Microsoft changes their app, so there's no longer a customer table, then my app will break. So if they decided to create a new customer table and obsolete the old table, then my app will suddenly have a dependency on the obsoleted table and will thereby not work. So in the upgrade process, my app will fail and abort the upgrade process. But what Microsoft is doing now is that they're not removing stuff. They're trying their very, very hardest not to break things. But there are a series of planned breaks. So they changed the email functionality. So an app should switch over to the new email functionality and not have dependencies on the old email functionality. And if you don't do that, then your app will break. But it's usually a quick fix. There's no major re-engineering as stuff like that happen. But you have to update your app. And
you were notified that the break was coming.
Oh yeah, right? two versions ahead.
Right. So I just so any end users that are listening, right? Like you shouldn't. The update shouldn't push out and all of a sudden you figured out your app broke. You should have known your app was going to break before the update was coming.
Yeah.
We've been talking, I think, a lot about BC in the cloud. Anything in what we covered, is it different for those still on-prem in BC?
Well, there's no AppSource for people on-prem. So it's on-prem is a terrible experience at this point.
Microsoft is still trying to navigate that, right? Because dual use rights. I mean, we have customers that are trying to take advantage of dual use rights, and so now what do you do about these apps? And the ISVs are scrambling. I mean, they're still sorting out that part of the ecosystem, frankly.
So what we have to do to get our AppSource apps to be usable in a non-cloud situation is right now we're kind of going through the CFMD. Technically, that it's not that process, but it's kind of the same. So we get it registered in the voice, and people can put it into the licenses and all that annoying things.
Wrong. I worked with another ISP that this customer just wanted on premises, and I was like, you don't, and he chose an ISV that wasn't ready, and it took a very long time to get that object available in voice. I mean,
it's just as complicated as it were 10 years ago, and there's always some contract that has expired that needs to be re-signed, and yeah, it's not a pleasant experience.
All right, so talk to your partner. I want to round it up with this last question, which we touched on earlier, and I want to make sure we get to a clear answer, at least some clear guidance for users. So, has anything principally changed, or what does the conscientious user do now in terms of where they go for support? So if they're getting their base app from the VAR and then they're able to get these other apps from other ISVs, do they still rely on their VAR exclusively, or is the ISV in charge of support at this point? Has anything shifted or no?
So
I'd go back to Tom's point. So there are going to be partners that specialize in ISVs. We specialize in manufacturing, so I know all the manufacturing ISVs that I want to support. And if you come to me and you say, hey, I've picked this random, let's say EDI solution out of Norway, okay, I'm not going to know a thing about it. Right. And so in that case, it's going to be an ad hoc solution, and they're going to have to make sure that that ISV can support it. And I'm okay with that. If that's the one that fits and they want to go that route and they can get the support they need for it, they can add it to the solution. We continue managing the relationship on the rest of it, and that specific solution gets supported by the ISV. And as a partner, I have no problem with that.
But, I would point out, Ben, that I'm really glad you hit that topic. Lots and lots of ISVs will lead an end user to believe that they can handle it all. And then the next thing you know, they're on the phone with us going, oh, hey, we need you to do X, Y, or Z, which we're always happy to do. But the customer needs to expect that there's going to be some billable time from their partner
to help
make this thing run.
Yep.
So one dimension of AppSource that we really haven't touched, I know Mark was ready to wrap this up, I just want to touch one more point, is that currently there's no monetization model for apps in AppSource. which means that whenever you get an app from any vendor, suddenly there is a way to figure out how to pay for this app. And some ISVs you pay through a partner, some you pay directly, and some has credit card in-app system, and that kind of also ties into the whole model of support. So if I as a VAR gets a percentage of an app that my customer gets, then I'm more likely to answer calls about it. But if it's an app that's installed, you pay a credit card in the app, and I have no relationship to the app nor the transaction that happened, and why should I support it?
How can you be expected to? Sure.
I do think, though, rare is the app that isn't routing data in and out of the base application. It's all part of a client's business process that we're otherwise supporting. So, I mean, for the run-of-the-mill app that a client is going to have, whether I have a relationship with them or not, I'm anticipating that I'm going to continue to be frontline support. I think it's just the knowledge for that end user that there's a higher probability, if it's not an app that we recommended, that they might need second or third tier support from that other party. But rare is the extension that will click in where you full cycle process in just that area, and it's not touching data from the base app or other parts of your business process that I help to implement and configure, and that I know intimately about your business. So I think as partners, it's understanding, it's setting the expectations with that individual. What's the agreement between our organizations? Where can we help? And just knowing that there is with certain products going to need to be, that one step out from the assistance. And Tom, I think your point was very valid. That other organization doesn't know that client's data and doesn't know that client's business process like we do as their partner, which likely means that there might come a point during the install or the config where they need us because we know it. We helped them get there. We help them make those decisions about that configuration set. But I think that we're going to continue to be that primary point of support for our clients and just have that clients understand that expectation. It'll start with us, but it might not end with us, depending on the product.
And, to answer your specific question, Mark, so we typically try to explain to customer the various ways that they can self-serve support. We're not in any way, shape, or form trying to hold a customer hostage, right? It's like, look, there's great YouTube videos. There's a funny talking guy out of Canada that does a bunch of them. There's but there's good material out there if you're inclined to self-serve. We are more than happy to help you. And would, appreciate the opportunity to do so. But just understand, when you call us, the meter is running.
Right.
Exactly.
Very, very, very fair. That's my takeaway among several, I think, but my key takeaway from this is, look, for everybody out there, your partner is or should be there to know your business and support your business and make sure the technology is helping your business grow. And they obviously, at least everybody on this panel and their organization, is very interested in making sure that they continue to grow with you. And so talk to them. If there's an area of unmet need or an area of interest that you want to expand into, talk to them, because they obviously know your situation and have your best interest at heart there in order to make sure the technology is doing everything it can for your organization. So give them a call, definitely. Folks, I'm so glad we talked about this today, and thank you so much for taking care of my moderation responsibilities and allowing me just to enjoy the discussion.
Appreciate you bringing us.
Thank you, Mark. We appreciate it. Good to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
So Natalie, Tom, Ben, David, Eric, always a pleasure. Everybody that's watching, I hope you enjoyed that and picked up some fantastic nuggets, because they were definitely in there. I hope you enjoyed this. Certainly, if you have an idea for a topic that you'd like to have me discuss with the panel on a future episode, let us know. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. You'll certainly get the updates when we post these. Everybody, thanks very much for being on. And I hope everybody has a fantastic summer. We'll do another huddle in a short while. Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Bye.
Thanks, Mark. Take care. Thanks, everybody.